What is up? What it do? Welcome into the double FU, the FU times two. This is the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel. This is Jesse Muller at JMuller05. Hashtag HAN is him. We are here to talk to you about running backs this week. Our week 9 rankings, we're going to go through them. It's consensus between the two of us. We figured out where we fall with these guys. We're going to talk through it, talk about guys we're high on, guys we're lockstep on, and especially those guys we have those differences of opinion on to give you kind of the best insight into what these running backs are doing. But first, Jesse, how you doing today, man?
I am good. I am just salivating a thought process of starting Devon Etienne against the Buffalo Bills. So my juices are flowing. We are ready to roll. It's going to be a fun week 9. It was a pretty good week for us last week overall. Like, we had good shows. Rankings worked out. So, yeah, we're hoping we can continue this progression upward and onward, as they say. To the moon, baby. To the moon.
Listen, man, I was saying off screen, I was telling Jesse how in Sleeper I have all of my 26 leagues like categorized in between, the leagues I really care about, and then they're organized, and then underneath are the leagues where I'm rebuilding or, I don't really care. I had 12 wins in a row at the top. I'm like, oh, I won. This is going to be an awesome week. And then I have 12 losses in a row underneath those. So at least I won a majority of the leagues that I care about last week. But at the same token, yeah, it was just kind of an average week overall. Crazy fantasy scoring last week, though. So let's jump into it here and let's talk about our consensus week 9 rankings for running back. And we will start with our first 6. So, Jesse, let me know who you want to talk about between our number 1 running back of the week, Saquon Barkley. Number 2, Bijan Robinson. Number 3 is Kyren Williams. 4 is that man, Devon Achane. Number 5 is Jahmyr Gibbs. And number 6, Joe Mixon. Who do you like?
So I'm going to highlight the guy who I have on the hashtag down below, Devon Achane. With Tua Tagovailoa, he had 7 targets in every game Tua has started. He's going up against Buffalo's Bills defense, which gives up the most receptions and yards to running backs in the NFL. We saw his usage last week. He's back to being that league-winning running back. It was a bad month. We got right away that month, but you're firing him up everywhere, and I was contemplating making him the RB1 overall, but there are some really juicy matchups with the guys above. So 4 is a very good spot for him. I'm super excited for him because he was one of the guys we were touting in the offseason, and it's paying off. So, yeah, that's the guy I wanted to hype up.
Yeah, he absolutely crushed last week as well, and now he gets that ridiculous Buffalo run defense. The one thing is Terrell Bernard is trying to play this week. I don't know if that's going to happen. To be perfectly frank, I don't know if it's going to matter. They were able to contain Kenneth Walker last week. Devon Achane is a completely different animal for them to deal with. I think he goes nuts in this one. I agree. I'm going to talk a little bit about Bijan Robinson. He did not get the volume that we like to see on the ground last week, but he had 7 targets and 7 receptions, scored through the air against Tampa, and now he gets an even somehow worse defense in the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's absolutely going to run wild. They may limit him, but I'm firing up every single Atlanta Falcon in this one and give me Bijan to lead the charge. I think he probably gets another one through the air, to be honest, and hopefully one on the ground.
100%. I think it's gonna be nice and juicy for him. I love it.
Let's move on to tier 2 here. So these are running backs 7 through 12. We have Alvin Kamara coming in at number 7, Derrick Henry at 8, Breece Hall at 9, James Cook 10, Aaron Jones at 11, and Kenneth Walker, Kenneth Walker III, against the Los Angeles Rams, rounding out our top 12.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kenneth Walker. Well, you almost have to write off just how bad last week was against the Bills defense, because everything was out of sync, and it's one of those games you put on the film tape, you're like, we're just throwing this away. It did not work out. They even involved Charbonnet last week a little bit. I understand that, but the Rams defense, they can very much be had, and in particular, I like them in this matchup. They're giving up about 20 points per game to running backs. Also, another team that gets gouged through the run. Like, they're giving up 112 yards on the ground, and Kenneth Walker is one of the most explosive rushers in the NFL. The receiving aspect is the thing that puts him over the top. I think in this matchup with both teams are projected under one of the highest in the week. Like, it's going to be a fun game, more what we were expecting previously than what we saw last week from Seattle. So I'm back all aboard the Kenneth Walker trade this week.
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't know what the hell Seattle was doing last week. I know they were a little discombobulated with DK Metcalf missing. He's likely going to miss again. I think they need to figure it out, and they need to start by figuring out the run. They'll be able to run once again in this one. And I think maybe they use both backs, right? We saw Charbonnet get some run in that Bills game last week. He scored the touchdown. I don't have a problem with it. I just think Kenneth Walker just needs to be kind of utilized more, and then they can open up the passing game, et cetera, et cetera. But this offense can get back on track, I believe, without DK Metcalf. So totally agree. Let's talk quickly about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had a down week last week, but it's only because he did not score a touchdown. When Aaron Jones doesn't score a touchdown, he's a middling RB2. Even though he had a volume, he just had a rough day against those Rams that you were talking about. But at the same time, he plays Indianapolis this week. I think everybody eats for Minnesota as well. This game has the potential with Joe Flacco to be a high scoring matchup. So yeah, I love it. In Minnesota on the fast track, I think Aaron Jones gets back to his normal RB1 ways.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. Like Indianapolis gives us 123 yards on the ground, the fourth most in the NFL to running backs. I'm curious to see how the new offensive tackle helps out, because the loss is that's what I was worried about. They wouldn't trade. Was it Cam Robinson who they traded for?
Cam Robinson, yep.
Yeah. So like I'm curious to see how that impacts, and if it can kind of keep the offense afloat similar to what it was, then yeah, Aaron Jones. By the way, Aaron Jones, like, usage was out of control. Played like 98% of snaps, had like 90+% of touches in that game. They love Aaron Jones. We should love Aaron Jones in Minnesota as well.
Totally agree. Let's move on to number 13, DeAndre Swift, vaulting up the ranks week by week here somehow. Number 14, Jonathan Taylor. Number 15, Josh Jacobs. Number 16, Tony Pollard. Number 17, Kareem Hunt. And 18, David Montgomery. Jesse, who do you like in this tier 3 of running backs?
I really like Tony Pollard. I just hate the offenses in both of these games, because the Patriots, they cannot stop running backs. Like, they have just been getting gouged. They're giving up 4.7 yards per carry. Like, it's not really good there. They're also getting up 30 rushing yards an attempt. They are the 31st worst. Like, they give up the second most points in the NFL to running backs. Tony Pollard, he's the bell cow back there. I thought it was going to be Tajay Spears. I completely lift on that situation. But yeah, why he's down in this ranking is just like, I don't think these teams are going to score a lot of points. So the touchdowns are what going to be limiting for him. If he can get a few touchdowns, like 1 or 2, then he has the potential to be a top 5 back this week. I think he's a really high floor play this week, and I like him in the Patriots matchup, because let's be real, that passing game sucks in Tennessee. So they're going to say, here you go, Tony Pollard, here's 25 carries, go make it work.
Yeah, and he's been doing that, right? 20 carries last week, 17, 16, 22 over the last month in each of those games, but he's also getting the volume through the air, which we love to see. When Tony Pollard does not score a touchdown, he scores a little bit less, but when he does score a touchdown, he ends up right here as a borderline RB1, even in the bad offense. And against the Patriots, look, it probably would have been better if Drake May plays this game. We still don't know, but we're assuming he's out. If Drake May plays this game, New England scores, and that means that Tennessee needs to figure out what the hell to do on offense to kind of keep up with Jacoby Brissett and the slower pace of play with likely a ton of Ramondre Stevenson. I think it becomes a little tougher for Pollard to get there, but that's the only reason he's this low. It's a weird matchup. It's a bad offense, and he's still our RB16. I want to talk a little bit about DeAndre Swift. How the hell is DeAndre Swift doing this? I don't know, but I do know that over the last month, the matchups have been amazing for Chicago. They get another amazing matchup here against Arizona, but Swift has been going off. Like, even against Washington, they're not a great defense, but they're a little bit improved. He went 18 attempts for 129 yards and a touchdown on the ground. We talked about it earlier this week, the fact that DeAndre Swift is getting there on the ground, even when he doesn't have any touches in the receiving game. Now he's going up against Arizona. Arizona, we know, has the likelihood of scoring as well. But yeah, if he's going to get it done on the ground, it doesn't matter. You just fire him up every week, right?
Yeah, he's been really, really good. He was awful to start the year. It has flipped. They figured it out that DeAndre Swift is by far their best running back. Sorry, Roshan. Sorry, Khalil Herbert. They need to trade Khalil Herbert because he's doing nothing on that roster. But yeah, like, you fire him up in a juicy matchup where you expect Chicago to score, you expect Arizona to score. The points should be fruitful, and DeAndre Swift should have a good game on the ground.
That's it. We have tier 4 here, 19 to 24. We have Chase Brown at 19. Brian Robinson coming in at number 20. Feels a little bit too low, I think. James Conner at 21. Tyrone Tracy at 22. If he plays, we'll see what happens with that concussion protocol. Raheem Mostert, my boy, at 23. And Rachaad White rounding out the top 24. I'm curious who you like. A lot of really good names in this tier.
I really like the Giants and the Commanders matchup.
Yep.
These are the two worst defenses at preventing rushing attempts per like carry. Like they're over 5.5, like basically 5.35 and 5.37 per rushing attempts. We just saw Tyrone Tracy absolutely gash the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Oh yeah.
I'm expecting him to do that if he plays. If he doesn't play and Singletary plays, I'm really gonna like Singletary in this matchup. It's just a little bit less from Singletary. So he'll probably be like running back 18, 19. Brian Robinson, by the way, this is a smash matchup for him, but it's like just the injury concern and stuff for Brian Robinson. That's why he's lower. You were talking about it. We need to raise him up higher because the Giants defense is not good against running backs. And I think Brian Robinson can have a really, really good, hyper efficient day, get a couple touchdowns. And heck, I even like Eckler in this matchup. Overall, like I want to fire up all the running backs in this matchup.
Yep. There's no argument there. Brian Robinson has looked awesome. A few down weeks, but I think more result of the schedule than anything else. And I believe he was coming off of injury or had a small injury himself. So, yeah, he'll get right and he'll get back into it. Our RB20 consensus. For me, I really love, surprise, surprise, Raheem Mostert. I told you to start Raheem Mostert last week. He got you 2 touchdowns. Could he get you 2 touchdowns against Buffalo this week? Yeah, he could, right? I think the efficiency will be there. Buffalo is 3rd worst in giving up fantasy points to the running back on the season per Fantasy Pros, and they're barely worse than the Cowboys by 0.1, by 1/10 of a point worse or better than the Cowboys for that second least terrible spot. So point is you want to fire up all your running backs against Buffalo. Etienne is going to go off, but you know what? Raheem Mostert's going to go off too. I think it's another week where Jalen Waddle probably doesn't get it done at the expense of these 2 backs. But this could be a 40-point blowout shootout between these 2 teams. So we'll have to see what happens there. Let's move on to the next tier 5. We start with Ramondre Stevenson at 25 at Tennessee. We have J.K. Dobbins at 26, Chuba Hubbard at 27, Bucky Irving at 28, Alexander Madison making the top 30 at 29, Rico Dowdle at 30. I believe that's 6 names. Who do you like in that group?
If you went into the season and you had these guys on your roster at running back, you'd probably be like, oh boy, this is going to be a long, long season. But I like the upside of Raheem Mostert in this matchup against the Bengals defense, which has been consistently had throughout the year. The thing about Alexander Madison is he's had the last 2 weeks, he's been 80% plus rush share, and he had 18% target share last week. He is the bell cow in that offense. It is not a great offense. I do not care. They're going to have to keep up with the Cincinnati Bengals offense because it's one of their offenses in the NFL. So the way I think this plays out is he gives you Madison. The volume and the productivity is there. If he finds his way into the end zone, he could be in for a really good day. But overall, I think he's a really high floor player this week. I like him a lot. I've changed my tune on Alexander Madison. I'm fine rolling him out the rest of the season.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, he ran into Kansas City's buzzsaw Kansas City defense, 14 carries for 15 yards last week, but he did a little bit through the air. So you definitely can't count him out. And then 2 weeks ago, he kind of went off against the Rams. He looks good when he touches the ball, which is, you could not say that about Alexander Madison during his time in Minnesota. But he looks really good when he gets his hands on the ball. I'm going to highlight another running back who's playing Kansas City, except they're playing this week. It's Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving or Rachaad White, it's really interesting between these 2 backs. But I think we've seen this play out where, Rachaad White is the receiving back, right? Oh, wait, Bucky Irving, 7 targets last week, 7 receptions for 40 yards. This is the type of usage that we want to see. If he's going to get in between the tackles runs or the majority of them, and he's going to see that level of volume in the receiving game, absent Chris Godwin and absent Mike Evans, I mean, you have to fire up Bucky even in a tough matchup, right?
Oh, yeah. I like Bucky a lot. The issue, and this is more gets into the issue in these matchups where they're going to be trailing by a lot, is that he's not the preferred passing down back. But to your point, he could still get there. So that's why I have Rachaad White significantly above him this week. Is I'm expecting in a game against Kansas City, they're going to be trailing. Baker's been fantastic, but they're without their main weapons. We'll see if Jalen McMillan gets there and overall. I just think the safer options is Rachaad White as a pass catcher. He's been really good receiver's entire career. So I like both of those guys. I just temper my expectations a little bit with Bucky against this vaunted Chiefs defense because that front is nasty.
Yep, totally agree with you. But Bucky did out target Rachaad White last week. White did find the end zone. But yeah, so it's interesting if it is split going forward for sure. Let's move on to the next tier. It starts with Austin Eckler at 31 against the New York Giants, who we referenced earlier. Tyler Algier at 32. Javonte Williams at 33 against Baltimore, unfortunately. Nick Chubb at 34, ramping him up. 35 is Tank Bigsby, and Zach Moss rounds it out at running back 36.
Yeah, it gets really tough in this range of running back. Like I really do not want to play Chubb against the matchup against the Chargers. Like that front is nasty. It's going to be difficult. Javonte is going up against Baltimore. Like Baltimore's front just gives up the least amount of rushing yards, like pretty much in the NFL. It's like less than 50. It's not good. So this range of running back, you're kind of just counting on guys to give you the volume or be efficient, which that's kind of why I like Eckler a lot. I think Eckler is a nice play in the matchup against the Giants defense, which is just honestly just not that good. But you could kind of talk yourself into a few of these guys. The one guy, Zach Moss, is interesting. It's just I more think it's Chase Brown's backfield now at this point in time. So
Yeah,
like he's kind of the complementary piece. If you need to flex him, you could flex him. But yeah, it gets a little bit treacherous with this range of players. It's either bad matchups or guys in kind of like complementary roles.
Yep. And kind of the antithesis of what we were talking about Bucky in the receiving game and some of these other backs in the receiving game. We know that Zach Moss is involved in the receiving game as well. He's only involved in the receiving game. So, but that keeps him on the field a lot. The problem is they're playing the Raiders. We know that they're not really going to have to utilize that skill set. They could pound Chase Brown up the middle 20 times if they wanted to. So, yeah, that's why is that low for us. I agree. Let's talk about Tank Bigsby real quick. I know you feel exactly this same way. Tank has received a ton of volume in the last 2 weeks, absent Travis Etienne, 26 carries against in week 7 against New England, 18 carries in week 8 against Green Bay. He's kind of this waiver darling that we'd love to plug in. The problem is Jacksonville is not going to be playing with a lead like at all for the rest of the season. They're certainly not going to be playing with a lead against Philadelphia here. And that's why we're really low on Tank this week, right?
Yeah, like I do not want to play Tank Bigsby. I think you need a touchdown from him this week because they're going to be training a lot. Like ETN might play, we're not sure. He's trending towards playing.
Yeah.
But if not, like you could talk yourself into playing Dearness Johnson over Tank Bigsby just because they're going to be trailing a lot throughout this game and they're going to be passing a lot. And I just don't expect Tank Bigsby to really be running off chunk yards against Philadelphia defense. So yeah, it's kind of we're in this range of running backs. It's like I don't feel comfortable about playing any of these guys. But yeah, like if you have to run them out there, I get it. You just more or less need them a touchdown to get in.
Totally agree. And guess what? Jacksonville's going to get crushed in this game. Absolutely dominated in this one. Another tier here of 6 backs. We have at running back 37, Zach Charbonnet. Against those Rams at 38, Ray Davis, Justice Hill at 39, Antonio Gibson at 40, Devin Singletary at 41, and Roschon Johnson at 42. A ton of backup running backs. Who do you like the best here?
Yeah, this is the range of running back. You're just hoping a guy gets on the field and plays a lot. So you're hoping in a situation where like Ray Davis, Buffalo gets out to a big lead in the first half. The second half, they kind of turn it over to Ray Davis. The issue is like that's James Cook's backfield. So you're hoping he can get like a goal line touch and get in the end zone. We'll see. Like Roschon, it's kind of a similar bet, right? Too. You hope he gets some goal line work, and he's had some in the past where he falls in the end zone and gives you 6 points for a touchdown. I think it's an interesting range. Probably the most interesting one, Singletary, because he could be the starter this week. If he's the starter, he's going to significantly vault up rankings like we talked about. So of this group of guys, I think Singletary by far gives you the most upside. And it's still a good matchup against Washington where you could talk yourself into Singletary playing because he played a decent amont of role like next to Tyrone Tracy, but like Tracy's clearly taken the one spot in the backfield. And so he's probably the best bet for me. But if we're counting on backups, like falling in the end zone, I say it's either Charbonnet or it's Davis. And then outside of that, I don't feel great about a lot of these guys.
Yeah, totally agree. And Singletary, it's such a stark difference between the first month of the season and then now that he's come back from injury and Tyrone Tracy has just completely taken over. In the first month of the season, Singletary looks to be averaging, I don't have an exact number, but just eyeballing it here, it looks like somewhere around 15 touches a game. Now he's got 6 and 4 touches over the last 2 games, and he's healthy, right? So like you said, Tyrone Tracy is completely taken over. We'll see if Tracy suits up after the concussion, if he gets through protocol. Odds are he won't. So yeah, you fire up Singletary, and like you said, he'll vault up probably till the mid 20s, maybe back end 20s. if he plays in this game. I think we're going to cut it there, but let's talk about any other running backs you feel strongly about, maybe a sleeper or two you have outside of our top 42 this week.
Yeah, I would say, like we talked about Dearness Johnson a little bit. I made the case for him. Like in this range of guys, I'm looking for someone who's going to be on the field playing, getting snaps. And the majority of the guys, it's just simply not the case, right? Braylon Allen did cut into Brees Hall's
Yes.
work last week, so you could talk yourself into Braylon Allen in this matchup against Houston, where he gets some chunk plays and he gets in the end zone. I don't mind him. So I would say him or Dearness Johnson are the two where I could see them having the biggest roles. The other guys, like Jaleel McLaughlin, did not have a big role. He just found himself in the end zone. So that's why his scoring was there last week. Going up against Baltimore, they might need him in the passing game more, so you could do that. But yeah, it gets rough real fast at this range of running back. You're looking around like, I just need somebody to score a touchdown.
Yep. Braylon Allen was going to be my guy if I'm forced to pick a second guy. There's a couple. I would say Blake Corum is interesting. Certainly, he hasn't received the workload just yet, but it appears as though they're trying to work him in more. If if the Rams just start to run away with this game against Seattle, much like Buffalo did against Seattle last week, I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. Blake Corum could see a lot of garbage time work. And then Miles Sanders, he's been getting some run. I know we're expecting Jonathan Brooks back, but Chuba has not been carrying the load, and Sanders has been the garbage man for Carolina over the last week or two. So, it's possible that Taysom Hill scores 4 touchdowns. Carolina gets absolutely crushed, and the fourth quarter belongs to Miles Sanders. So if that's the case, you could desperation flex him if you have like 7 flexes in your league.
Yeah, I would say a guy that's really far down in ranking is Eric Gray, because if Singletary misses, or sorry, if Tracy misses the game, Gray plays that 1B role to Singletary, he'll vault up rankings too. He'll be like in kind of this range we're talking about of like backup running backs who could get a little bit of work. So I would say he's the other guy that like jumps out at me.
Absolutely. I don't want to talk about any of these other guys, so let's end it here. These have been your Week 9 running back rankings from the Fantasy Football Universe, our consensus. So thanks for joining us. Remember, we are here on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're all over the place. Please like and subscribe us. TikTok. We're in the Reddit streets arguing about Bo Nix. So just come talk to us, interact, check out our live shows. We're live 4 times a week. We really appreciate interacting with you. And our next live is on Saturday. So if you enjoyed these ranking shows, we will see you there. This guy will see you there. This guy will see you there. And until next time,